Ingalls Wilder. It's written by Will Mara. I'm going to take a picture walk, and I want you to think if this book is fiction or nonfiction. So take a moment to look at these pictures and see if you think these pictures are real and that the book is going to have facts, which makes it nonfiction, or if you think the book has fake pictures where animals talk, or people don't do things that are real, and it is fake fiction. If you said nonfiction, you're right. And this book actually is called a biography, and it tells the story of someone's life. And since we're learning about Laura Ingalls Wilder, we're going to learn about her life first, and then we're going to read about some things that she's done in her life. Can you imagine life without telephones, television, or movies? Laura Ingalls lived in this way for many years. So what it just said, she had no telephone, television, or movies. In fact, Laura Ingalls Wilder didn't have electricity at some times in her life, which means she couldn't turn the lights on when it was nighttime outside. She had to read by candlelight. She was born in Wisconsin on February 7th, 1867. Now we always talk about the year it is. It's 2016, and she was born in 1867. That was almost, probably 150 years ago. So that was a very long time ago. And I want you to look at these pictures in the book and see how long ago the pictures were taken and how things were different from the way you live your life now with electricity, television, telephones, iPhones, iPads, cars, trucks, motorcycles, airplanes. And then look at her life that did not have a lot of those things that most people had. Most people didn't have those. Her family lived on a farm. Running a farm was hard work, and we know all about that because we just learned all about hard work with farms and the animals, taking care of them, and all the work with the crops. So we know how hard it is to own a farm and live on one. If you needed food, you had to grow it yourself. If it was cold, you had to build a fire. Laura helped run the family farm. She had 3 sisters who helped on the farm too. Their names were Mary, Carrie, and Grace. Laura and her family moved a lot. Her father was always looking for a better place to live. They went to Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Minnesota, and South Dakota. I hope I could see some of you say, and get really excited because they said that she lived in Missouri. And that's why we learn about her. There's our state, Missouri. And Laura Ingalls Wilder lived here. They did not use a car when they traveled. There were no cars then. They rode in a covered wagon. The family settled in South Dakota when Laura was little. Laura began working as a teacher. While she was living in South Dakota, Laura met a man named Almanzo Wilder. She married Almanzo in 1885. The Wilders had a daughter. They named her Rose. Rose grew up and became a writer. Now I know you guys all have been writing stories in your writing journal. And so if you write words to a story, what are you called? And I hope you said an author. One day Rose had an idea. She asked her mother to write stories about her childhood. Rose thought other people would enjoy her mother's stories. Laura sat down at her desk and began to write. She wrote a book called Little House in the Big Woods. Children all over the world loved it. They asked her to write more. Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote 7 more books. They were called the Little House books. And suddenly, Laura was famous. Laura did not let being famous change her life. She still worked on her farm every day. She thought hard work was good for a person. Laura Ingalls Wilder lived to be 90 years old. She died on February 10th, 1957. So in 10 more years, she would have been 100 years old. Can you imagine? Children are still reading Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. There was even a television show based on them. It was called Little House on the Prairie. The show was very popular. Mrs. Drake used to watch that show every day after school, kind of like you guys probably watch cartoons after school. I watched it was called Little House on the Prairie, and I watched it almost every day. Here are some of the books that Laura has written that maybe we'll read in class, but I'll have sitting over at Read to Someone if you guys want to look through them and try and read the words about her wonderful stories when she was a little girl. Also, we're going to start our Laura Ingalls Wilder fact book. So today, I'm going to want you to write a fact in this book about Laura Ingalls Wilder. You will need to go to the writing page because I will have the example up there. So when you go to the writing page on Student Links, I want you to open your book up to the first page and write the fact that Mrs. Drake has for you. It's going to be about the way that Laura traveled. So before you go over to the writing page, I want you to think how Laura traveled. What did it say in that book was the way that she traveled? If you said she traveled by covered wagon, then you remembered right. I have another question for you. What did Laura grow up to be? What did she do when she got older? If you said she became an author, then you said the right thing, which means you answered the question right about the text. One more question. Did Laura Ingalls Wilder watch television after school? You should have said no, because when she was little, she did not have electricity on her farm. Go to the writing page in Student Links and click on Laura Ingalls Wilder, page 1.